All right, guys, let's get started. I don't have sort of a formal speech or lecture prepared here. I just thought I would go over the exam in general. I'm not going to get into a ton of specifics, but I will take questions. You can either do questions by chat or by audio, whichever way you want to do it. The final is a 3-hour final, as hopefully you know. It's this Saturday, and it's only going to be open for the period of the actual exam. So, as I said in the announcement, it's Saturday the 17th at 7 p.m. It's 3 hours, so that's how long the exam is going to be open. I experimented, unfortunately, with midterms this year, leaving it open for longer periods, and I do apologize for those that are in different time zones. But what I get when it's open for a very long period of time is that I get a lot more collaboration, and that's a synonym for cheating. So I am going to only keep it open for 3 hours, and I would ask that those of you that have the integrity to do so, do the exam on your own, please. That's the expectation. It's only since COVID started in the last year that this hasn't been a proctored exam. This was always a proctored exam where you could do it either online with an online proctor, or you could do it in person with a couple people walking up and down the aisles proctoring the exam. But yeah, I'm kind of left with no choice. If I leave it open for a long period of time, there's just too much exposure. I know that my exam gets posted, and I know that the answers are posted, and therefore people that cheat are at an unfair advantage to those that choose not to. I will probably not be posting a practice exam. I've thought about that. The multiple choice. So let's talk about the exam first. The exam itself is going to be in 3 parts here, and I'm just going to pull it up while I'm talking to you. So the first part is going to be multiple choice or multiple answer. You're going to be very familiar with those. They're going to be from the same pool of questions as you've been dealing with in the quizzes. So you will definitely recognize some of them. You may not have seen them all, but you'll be familiar with some of those questions. That will be somewhere between 50 and say 70% of the marks. So it'll be no less than half the marks and no more than 2/3 of the marks will be from the multiple choice. Part 2 is going to be a short answer question worth 10 marks, and that will be about some topic that we've discussed. And all the chapters are fair game, as are any of the discussions we've done. So, and any supplementary videos that I've posted, that's all fair game. Now, if you're constrained with time, the place to be studying are the 2 textbooks. So the vast majority of things that I ask you are going to come straight out of the text or be an extrapolation of the information from the textbook. So that's part 2. It'll be a question or 2, short answer. Take a look at the marks as you're going through. So you guys are probably experienced exam writers at this point in your career, but take a look at what the marks are as a percentage of the total marks and allot your time accordingly. So don't spend, a disproportionate amount of time answering these short answer questions, giving me all sorts of detail, getting perfect marks, but costing yourself the opportunity to get the multiple choice and the other questions done. The part 3 is going to be a scenario or scenarios. So I'm going to try and make you assimilate the information that you've learned in this course by asking a broad question. And it's going to be multiple questions. So it's not going to be just one question worth a whole bunch of marks. I'm going to lead you down the path that I want you to consider different things in a scenario and respond to them. Okay, so those are the 3 parts: multiple choice, short answer question or questions, and then scenario questions. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. It's going to be 3 hours. You'll be able to complete it in under 3 hours, most likely. It's not going to be incredibly long or onerous that way if you're prepared. If you have to go through the multiple choice and you have to look up every single answer in your 2 texts, it's going to take you a while. I very seldom give anything less than a minute per multiple choice. So I try and give you a proportionate amount of time to answer those. A minute's lots if you're well prepared. And then if you have time at the end, you go through, or if you're not 100% sure because it's a multiple answer, then you do a search in the text. So it is open book. It's open everything. There's no restriction on what you can use, with the exception that if I found out that you were in a chat group and working on the exam altogether, and I'm not sure how I would find that out, but it has happened in the past that I found that out, that would be definitely an academic integrity violation. Okay. Does anyone have any sort of immediate questions? I'm just trying to find my chat box. Okay. Are we able to go back? That's a great question. So I always, in all of my exams, make the entire exam available to you at once. I'm not one of these people that believes in giving you a question at a time, and then you have to write down that question 25 I want to go back to, or whatever. The entire exam will be available to you at any time. So you can go back and forth any number of times, any way you want. The reason I do that is I don't necessarily expect students to want to work the exam from front to back. I wouldn't if I were you. I'm always a big proponent of getting some steam, getting into the questions that I do well in, that I'm comfortable in, whether that's short answers, scenarios, or multiple choice, whichever that is, and feel like I'm making some progress. I want to get as many marks per minute as I can starting off on an exam, so that I build some confidence. And if I come across a question that I don't know or I'm going to have to look up, I want to be able to skip that. The other component is if you make every question pop up one at a time, you're relying on a solid internet connection, right? So if everything's already there for you, all we have to worry about is the initial internet connection and the submission. Okay. So you definitely can go back and forth. You can change your answers. You can do whatever you want in any order for the exam. What do we need to study? As I said earlier, you need to study the chapters that we covered in the outline in both texts. You need to consider discussions and any supplementary videos. Yes, it will cover all modules 1 to 6. So this is a comprehensive exam. There's a lot of stuff that by the time we get to module 5 or 6, that it builds on the stuff that we looked at in module 1. So you'll want to know all that stuff. All right. Any other questions? Now, I should say, so I said how the exam's only going to be open for the 3 hours. If you have an SAS accommodation, and for instance, since we're starting at, and I've forgotten when that is, 7 p.m. maybe. Give me a second, I'll verify that. Starting at 7 p.m. and you have an SAS accommodation, that's going to take you deep into the night. Reach out to me and we'll work something out. I generally don't accommodate people unless they have an SAS accommodation or something really pressing. It is, as it says in the syllabus, it's up to the student to be available. And as much as I sympathize with the people that are in a different time zone, that's unfortunately just the way it is. I won't accommodate just because you're in a different time zone and no other reason. All right. Will this information be posted on Blackboard? I assume what you mean is the information that I am talking about right now. Yes, I'll do a follow-up. I'm hoping, it says that it's recording. I've never successfully recorded one of these sessions. I haven't tried that often, but I'm hoping to be able to post this entire Zoom meeting so that people can have access to it as well. No promises. It hasn't worked in the past. I tried it once before, it didn't work, but I will summarize the main points. However, the people that took the time out to come and attend this may know something that I don't post, and that's fine as well. You can share any information with your peers that you want. There's nothing privileged or confidential about this. Anyone else have any questions? Do you have an estimated number of marks or percentage of the exam grade for the scenario questions? So in the past, when I did this scenario question, it was worth about a quarter of the exam. It might not be quite that much this time around, but when I say scenario question, that's not truly what it is. It's a series of questions based on one scenario. So there may not be a single question that's worth, like say the exam's worth 150 marks overall, there may not be a single question that's worth more than 10, but I will walk through different parts of that scenario with you. And some of them are just going to be one or two or three marks. It's just going to be, what do you think of this? What does this mean? You know, that sort of thing. So how many multiple choice? I don't know that yet. I haven't finalized. It's going to be probably a solid guess is 75 to 100. If I go 100 multiple choice, then the multiple choice will be worth about 2/3 of the marks, usually a mark each. The exam is going to be out of somewhere around 150. It might be 160, it might be 140, but somewhere around there. So the most that it'll be is 100 multiple choice, multiple answer. And the least it'll be is probably 75 or something like that. So somewhere in that range. And if it's 75, that will be typically more like half of the exam. Now, based on my experience with the other classes, midterms in this environment, people tend to do very, very well in multiple choice. Because first of all, you've seen some of these questions. It's straight out of the text. You can Google it. You can search your text. You should do very, very well. That, as I've said before, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't study it, because you want to be speedy in it. If you can say it's 100 multiple choice, and instead of taking 100 minutes for that, you can get it done in 50 minutes. That just leaves you more time to attack the longer answer, like the short answer and the scenario ones. Longer answer than just multiple choice. Is the exam timed? Yes, of course. It's a 3-hour exam. It will auto submit after 3 hours. You can pause your exam, but the clock keeps running. So I'm not sure what scenario you'd want to do that in, but you should save frequently. And I mean, if you had to get up and stretch or whatever, and you didn't want to leave your exam open, you could pause it and resume it. But if it starts at 7 p.m., it is going to finish at 10 p.m., regardless of whether you've taken a 30-minute break or whatever. For the multiple answer, are there part marks? No. You have to get that either entirely right or entirely wrong. I'll explain my philosophy for that. I've talked to individual students about it. If I was a student and it was a multiple answer question and I was getting part marks, I would choose them all every time. And that means as an instructor, I would have to then do penalized multiple answer partial marks, which would mean that if instead of getting a 0, you could actually get a negative on a question. So I just feel that because they're out of the text, because I hand wrote those questions, and because I know that in many cases they're word for word out of the text, just take your time and be careful. Study well, but be careful and look carefully on those multiple answer ones, especially. I do sometimes make a multiple answer just a single answer. Don't feel that there's always got to be 2 or more answers. There doesn't. Multiple answer can be just one answer. It's rare that I do that, and there's questions, as you've probably seen in the quizzes, where all 5 answers are right. So just assess each line on its own. Take the time to read it carefully, because I will purposely throw a not or something in there so that if you're not actually paying attention, that I've said the opposite of what you're reading it as. So I don't try and be tricky with English. It's clear if you read it what it means, but do take your time and read it, and don't just scan the text. When you do a keyword search on that, don't just scan the text, because I'm trying to make sure that you actually read the section and understand it. There's lots of multiple answer questions that are highlighted in the text, meaning they're bold heads of lists. So they might be 5 sections, 5 different paragraphs, and they're bolded. So they're not really that tricky if you take your time and read them carefully. If we use the textbooks, would you like us to cite? No, I would not. Do not waste your time citing. Now that brings up another point. You cannot copy and paste from any source whatsoever. Even if you're going to cite that, if you're going to put it in quotations, you need to paraphrase. It's going to say right on the exam, use your own words. If you had a common, I don't know, so for some reason you want to use a common quote as opposed to information, you could quote it, but you don't need to. That's the bottom line. You don't need to cite. The expectation is not that you have that kind of time, quite honestly. So don't worry about citing out of the text or from any other source, but do use your own words. If I see something that looks obviously copied, I will Google it or search the text. And if I find that you've copied and pasted it, that will be a 0 on that answer. If it's done more repeatedly, it'll be an academic integrity investigation. And unfortunately, I've had to do that. I've had students not understand, for whatever reason, that you can't just copy and paste answers out of the text and expect that that's how to write your answer. What I'm trying to do is test your assimilation of the knowledge, not your ability to copy and paste. So we talked about an exam review, meaning a sample of questions. I've got a fairly shallow pool of questions. You've seen lots of them already as you've done the quizzes. So I'm not going to offer a multiple choice or any other sort of practice exam. And same answer, different words for the next question. Are you going to make quiz answers available? No. Same philosophical problem. I've got a small, shallow pool of questions. Quite honestly, I don't think anyone would disagree with me. The texts are not that difficult. There's not a lot of pages. We're not talking about 700 words or 700 pages of text. We're talking about some very small texts that are relatively easy to digest. So there's not that many questions per chapter. Like, I just don't have that many questions for you. And I also am not looking to make you guys into puppets where you memorize the answers to a bunch of multiple choice questions and just spew them back at me. I want you to assimilate a bit. So no, I'm not gonna make answers available. And I'm not gonna do the practice exam. I'm just scrolling back to see if I missed anything. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot else to say. I don't think you should be terrified of this exam. I don't think this is an incredibly hard course, but I would strongly suggest reading through the chapters, getting familiar. There's some sort of themes, underlying themes. There's some main things that we've been pushing throughout the course to make websites accessible, to make websites rank highly in search engines, to drive traffic to the website. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to know. If you have questions about content, if there's some concept that's eluding you, do send me an email. You're likely to do better sending me an email earlier in the week than later in the week. I will respond to everyone that I can. You can feel free to post in the discussion and let, like in the group discussion area, and let other people possibly help you out. I'll look in there as well. My reservation is simply this: if you wait until Friday at 11 o'clock or early on Saturday to ask me a question, I may not get to it. I'll try my best, but I may not. I've got a couple other courses. I'm marking 500 term papers at the moment with some assistance from workshop leaders, and I'm still marking the discussion posts. We're working our way through this, and then there's going to be 3 exams to grind through. So there's a lot going on right now. So Do reach out, but give me some time to respond, please. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Thank you. Feel free to drop off if anyone wants to stick around and ask me questions you didn't want to ask in front of the group or whatever, that's fine. Or reach out by email. That's also fine. I'll stick around for a few minutes. Once everyone's gone, I will shut it down. Thanks, guys. Good luck on the exam.
Fair game. How specific do you want to be? Like, do you want us to have like I know in discussions, people kind of reference different websites and, had a wealth of information. Do you want us to go through all the discussion posts to, read through everyone's posts to study for the exam, or should we just have a general overview?
No, I would be familiar with the topic area. Quite honestly, I don't use the discussions that much. There just may be something in there that's helpful, like a concept or something, but I wouldn't spend a ton of time with the discussions, but I would look at the topic areas just so that you're comfortable. For instance, the first topic, just talking about marketing in general, there's not going to be anything about that. I can tell you that for sure. But maybe some of the concepts in other ones. And mostly I would just look at the answers that I had created myself for the discussion. I wouldn't worry about other people's answers so much. Just make sure you're kind of familiar. Anything that I'm going to ask, you're going to be able to Google or find a reference for anyways. But I won't ask directly a question out of a discussion. It'll just be the use of that concept to answer a different question, maybe in the scenario. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.